So as you know, none of my kids has joined finance. A lot of people ask me, given that you've spent 20 plus years of your career in finance, and Zarna has in fact spent only 5 years in entertainment, why have they gravitated naturally towards entertainment? Hi, this is Finance Dad, Shalab Garg. I've had a long career in finance, jobs at a bank, I've had a job at a hedge fund. I currently run my own hedge fund. And today's podcast, I will cover advantages and disadvantages of starting a career in finance vis-a-vis entrepreneurship and vis-a-vis entertainment in particular, which is where most of my family is spending their time. So to start with, there is a specific reason why Zoya and Bridge, my two older kids, one of them has graduated college this year and one of them has finished a year in college and actively involved in my wife's social media career. And even my little one, who's 13, is already showing a lot of interest in entertainment and in finance and in social media related work. And none of them has shown any real interest in finance. And it's not because we haven't talked about it. It's not because they and I have not sat down and talked about what finance is about in the way that I talk to you about in my podcast. A big part of the reason why none of them has shown an inclination towards it, and in fact, in the case of Zoya, before I go into it, she did do an internship at a big corporation upon my push. I really wanted her to at least experience what it's like to work at a large corporation. She did an internship for 3 months in her third year, at the end of her third year, and just did not like it. And it all really comes down to, in each of their cases, ownership versus working for someone. When you work for someone, like I did most of my career, you get your income in the form of a W-2, which means that in a high income case, 45 to 46% of it gets taken by the government. So you have to work twice as hard to make half as much. When you own something of your own as a small business, whether it's a family office or even a laundry machine or a laundry doing shop or any such business, you can expense a lot of things. You can expense all the things that go into running that small business. The United States encourages people. I know it may feel like Apple and Goldman Sachs and McKinsey are the biggest employer in the country. If you look at the statistics, small businesses are the biggest employers in the nation. Bulk of the people work in small business owner setups where they're working for a truck owning company or they're working on a grocery selling company and so on and so forth. And the owners of those small companies benefit tremendously from the tax advantages that they get vis-a-vis the things that they can expense to their businesses. And my kids, the older ones who are more aware of themselves and their mother's business, were way more interested in doing that as opposed to working for someone. So in their case, it wasn't as much their lack of interest in finance. In fact, each of them talks to me about investments all the time and each of them has an interactive broker account as well and invests in things like single name stocks or S&P 500. In fact, Zarna herself has an interactive broker account and has her money sitting in S&P 500 based on my advice. But none of them wanted to pursue a career in this area, predominantly because of the tax disadvantages and also because they are very interested in creating a family-owned franchise and a family-owned business, which Zarna has made such a big sort of business around, where each of them is involved in things doing alongside their mother, but also a career where they help their mother create a social media presence. In the case of Zoya, selling her books, doing projects for her. So it just sort of gravitated in that direction, not an active decision where they chose not to work in finance in particular, as much as they chose not to work in big corporations. And for you, someone, as a young person, considering a career in a corporation or in finance, I would say entrepreneurship has tremendous advantages. Business ownership aside, it catapults you into doing something really, really intense early on. And if you have a great idea or like a great code or a great way of making something more efficient, I would encourage you to pursue that. I see no reason whatsoever for someone to not pursue a career in entrepreneurship. But having said that, a career in finance, which includes in it banks, private equity, and hedge funds, has its own advantages as well. And to go a little bit more into it, these jobs are a little different than traditional corporation jobs. Like when you work at a General Electric or work at Walmart or you work at Apple even, or these large corporations that have a lot of hierarchy and structure, These jobs at banks, hedge funds, and private equity are a little different than that. What do I mean by that? They're different in that they do offer an entrepreneurship flavor to them in a way that a traditional entrepreneurship job would too. How do they do that? You would, even though you would work at a big corporation, the desk or the group or the part of business that you will be a part of will operate almost like an entrepreneurial setup, where you will be responsible for the revenue line of that little desk or that little business. You will support the portfolio manager, you will support the investment banker, you would support the trading team, or whichever group that you're part of. Your life from start to finish, day to day, will be included just in that little pod or just that little group. And the monetary rewards, at least taxes notwithstanding, you would pay the W-2 taxes like you would pay in a big corporation, but it would still be at a very high level of income, so that even the after-tax income would be substantial. So I don't want you to get discouraged by the idea of working at a big corporation vis-a-vis banks, hedge funds, and private equity in the same way as you would consider getting discouraged from a job at a Walmart or an Apple or some of these other larger corporations. There's a huge entrepreneurial component of these organizations in the groups that you would work on, and the income levels even after tax are high enough that you will not feel that you're not being able to compete with your colleagues who are starting in tech or in an entrepreneurial setup. And remember, the percentage of success even today in those entrepreneurial jobs is very low, right? 1 out of 10, 1 out of 12 people succeed in what they're trying to accomplish in those entrepreneurial jobs. Whereas if you have a strong personality and a strong interest in these finance jobs, your chances of succeeding will be more like 3 out of 5 or 3 out of 6. 30 or 40% people who succeed, who join these businesses, especially after they've made it into the interviews and through the rounds of interviews to get those jobs, is relatively and reasonably high. So in that sense, risk reward, if you think of it in that way, is very high in joining these finance jobs. Of course, I offer a consulting hour. You have information on the text below you. You can reach me in any way of the forms noted there, email or otherwise. It's not free, but I can tailor your resume or your interest in more detail based on your background with respect to finance versus any other kind of job, being the father of these kids and being part of a family that's involved in a family business, and also having had a large, long and successful finance career. I'm obviously sort of uniquely positioned to be able to comment on more and uniquely positioned to tailor that advice specifically to what you may be looking for. One other question that has come up a lot, and my kids ask me this question, and I'm sure the viewers have it on their mind as well, the impact of artificial intelligence on these jobs. I mean, it's needless to say, like with every other industry, finance will not be immune to artificial intelligence either. In fact, I spend a lot of time in my own career today to hire people from artificial intelligence and help them automate my own strategy, my own hedge fund strategy, to see before somebody else does it, can I kill it on my own? Because if I can kill it, I might as well do it and have artificial intelligence or a learning tool learn it and sort of modify it and improve on it. But with that, I should also say that artificial intelligence will also be a huge opportunity in finance. It's no different than many of the automation tools that arrived in early part of my career in finance. There used to be this case where TradeWeb arrived, so automation of execution. Then clearing arrived, where all trades used to be cleared centrally. So all of a sudden, that automated a lot of things. You'd be surprised to know that many of these large banks have whole floors worth of people that they've hired from Google and Meta and from the large tech firms with backgrounds in artificial intelligence, and paying them tens of hundreds of millions of dollars to try to disintermediate what they do. So almost as if they have individuals doing what they do day to day, and then parallel individuals who do the artificial intelligence work trying to mimic what they do to get ahead of it. So it's not like banks are dealing with automation or dealing with new forms of conducting their business for the first time. They've dealt with it for like 50 years with every new level of technology and every new level of innovation. They were trying to stay ahead of it. So it's not as if it's a surprise to whether it's private equity or hedge funds or banks. It's not a surprise to them. They're very, very aware of it and letting to get ahead of it by hiring from those areas, by trying to disintermediate themselves from it. So I would not think of it as as if the need of that business will go away. It's just the way of conducting that business may change, as it did many other times in the past many years. So the interest in finance is paramount. You should love to do financial markets. You should love to do deals. You should love to do M&A. Apple will always need to buy a new Spotify or a new company that they're looking to buy, and for that they will need advice. And that cannot be disintermediated by artificial intelligence. What can be disintermediated is whether Spotify is as good a fit for Apple or not. That's something that most likely artificial intelligence can advise you, knowing the business of Apple better than anyone human can. What can be disintermediated is whether all this work that portfolio managers are doing to evaluate whether these companies are good investments or not, and the data that's available, artificial intelligence can probably automate it better than anyone else. ChatGPT is not going to go away. It's there. Whether it's going to stay as Google Plus or become its own thing, time will tell. Robots are real as well. There will be a robot over a period of time who will do our grocery shopping, do our driving, so all of those things, though, are not that different if you think about it in a bit more rational way than a car replacing a horse ride in 1903. Now, horse rides went away, mode of transportations changed, and the car became this new thing. But it's not like new industries did not form around it, and it's not like, many new sort of ways of doing that same thing did not exist. So that's the point I'm trying to leave you with. I guess that's where I will leave you with. Please like, comment, and subscribe my podcast. It helps me grow it. If you have any questions, I stand by and happy to answer them for you. And that's Finance That's signing off. See you next week.